few weeks ago, I put up a community post with a vote to pick a pedal that I could review in this month, in February. It was actually supposed to be January, but things have fallen behind a bit. That pedal that won was this, the Victory V4 Sheriff. It was a close one with this and the next pedal. In fact, a few days after I closed the vote, more people had voted and they ended up exactly even. So I'm going to push that other pedal into the next vote so you can have a chance to vote for that one again. But today we're talking about the Victory V4 Sheriff. Now, what exactly is this type of pedal? I mean, it's huge, so it's got to do something special, right? Well, if you haven't seen anything about this before, this is a preamp pedal, and not a preamp pedal in the way an Echoplex or a BB Preamp is. This really does take over your preamp of your amp. Now, it's, relatively complicated, but I'm going to try and simplify it as much as possible. This box can sit in front of your amp like any other pedal. And we're going to try that out on an amp with no effects loop. I thought it best to try it out on a really small amp like a Princeton, so you can see what sort of headroom we're going to get, how this copes with small speakers, and whether it really sounds like a good sort of overdrive pedal. Okay, but this pedal is definitely capable of a lot more. In front of that little amp, it's all right. It does the job. I don't think I would want a pedal this big though, that would take up so much real estate on my board if it were just to put in front of my amp. And that isn't the main point of this box. In fact, they're at pains to say that throughout their website and the manual, that this box is there to give you incredible flexibility compared to other sort of ways of rigging yourself up. Now, on the back here, we have basically it shows you the two different ways that you can connect this. So we have standalone mode, which is the one where you put it in front of your amp like a normal pedal, and you have the input for your guitar, and then you have the effect out to amp input. So it's just those two that you're using there. But if you want to use this as a preamp, you're going to have to do something a little bit more complicated. You just need 4 cables basically. So you still put your guitar here, and it's telling you this one then goes into your amp input. This one goes from the send output of your effects loop. This one goes back into the return, and then you don't use this one. Now, obviously, that's not a very interesting thing to show you, except for the fact that this basically gives you the chance to put other pedals in your effects loop. So what they say is essentially you're going to get 3 amps in one once you use this, assuming your own amp is a 1-channel amp. If it's 2-channel, you're basically getting 4 channels of amp. This will take over completely from the front end. Now, this is not digital. This has got real Mullard tubes in it. I'm not going to tell you what the tubes are. They're pretty obscure. They obviously had to find, some pretty cool things to put in here. The main aim of this video is how well does this work? Is it going to turn some of my amps into sort of like proper Plexi beasts? The Sheriff is got a lovely gritty tone from what I've heard on the internet. And how usable is this? you know, you've got two channels here. You've got a lower gain channel number one and a higher gain channel number two. You've got channel volume, master volume, and then you've got a global EQ, which could be an issue because, you know, you would think you'd have one for each channel to give you that flexibility. And then this switch here is your brightness toggle, 0 in the middle, -1 at the top, -2 at the bottom. So far, when I've just been playing around, I basically keep it in -2. This thing is very bright. Okay, what I thought we'd do now is we will put this through the front end of a larger amp. For that, we're going to try the Dr. Z Maz 18. The Maz 18 is already a sort of Plexi sounding amp. You know, it's got a decent amount of that gain in that lower to mid gain thing. It's got that wicked, gritty British sound, which I love. We're going to see what this does on the front end just very briefly, just to show you how it would be used as a pedal, because obviously if you buy one of these, you can, you know, use it in your effects loop a lot of the time, but what if you just love the sound of it as a normal pedal? Then we'll put it through the effects loop of the Maz, so we can see what it sounds like through, you know, the power stage of a British style amp. And then, more interestingly, I think we're going to put this through an American style amp. We'll put this through the Bloomfield drive, the 2-rock Bloomfield drive, which is, you know, a really beautiful, big, reverby, clean amp with a lead channel, but that's besides the point. Can you take out one American style amp plus this box and therefore have American and British on tap? That is the main question of today. But I want to take you through a few steps to get there. So come along for the ride, and then we'll come back here at the end and discuss what I thought of all of that. Okay, so that was really cool. I love the sound of that Maz by itself. I've been playing a lot with it recently. I've got to say, I think the Sheriff doesn't add a whole lot to the front end of it. You can get a lot of those sounds just with the Maz by itself. And the Sheriff, I find the master volume is, it doesn't go that loud. Considering on Victory's own website, they tell you to be careful to make sure the master is 0 when you turn everything on and then bring it up, because it could be very loud. It doesn't seem to boost things a whole lot, so that's quite an interesting thing. It does have some tonal characteristics of its own that the Maz doesn't have. Reminds me a bit more of my JTM 45. It's got that Hendrixy thickness with the edge of breakup, but it's sort of clean, you know, but the Maz can do its own version of that. They just have slightly different sort of tonal characteristics. All altogether, I prefer playing with the Maz by itself without the Sheriff in front of it. It feels a bit more dynamic, and I would probably just think that the Sheriff is way too big to take like that. So now let's put it through the effects loop of the Maz and see what happens. So, you know, that sounded pretty good. I had to keep the bright switch quite, you know, on -2 most of the time as I've played around with this in the effects loop of the Maz. It just seems to be really bright otherwise. I mean, yes, it sounds good. It does a good job if you want to get that Sheriff, you know, sound. But as I said in the last bit, I guess this test is just, I just wanted to see what would happen, because, I mean, there would be no point taking out something like the Maz and then running a Sheriff through its effects loop, really, because the Maz can do this anyway. You could use the boost foot switch for the Maz and get a bit more out of it as well, you know, like a tone bypass. So, yeah, it was a cool little test to do. You know, it sounded nice, sounded good. And it gave me a chance to see what the Sheriff is like as a preamp as opposed to a drive pedal. But I think this will be more telling when we get to the Bloomfield drive in a second. Now we're going to run it through the back end of the Bloomfield, and I'm hoping this is where it comes into its own. Okay, so you might have noticed running into the back end of the Bloomfield, didn't really get the volume I wanted out of it. I had to run the master volume at full, which I wasn't expecting. Now, each effects loop from each amp is different, but you know, 2-Rock, you've got to expect that they're doing really good effects loops. I was getting sort of unity with the amp when the master volume was fully on the Sheriff, which surprised me. I thought I'd be able to get, a bit of a boost, because this is finally where I feel like the Sheriff would come into its own, when you can run a clean amp with beautiful reverb like the Bloomfield, and then kick it into a Plexi whenever you need through that effects loop. But it's frankly not blowing my mind. Now, this on the Victory website, they say that there's, infinite amount of sort of tonal possibilities with the Sheriff, using the bright switch, using the tone. But I've got to say, I feel like I can get a couple of good tones out of it, but it's really not blowing my mind. And then I'm not feeling the massive difference compared to a normal pedal, a normal overdrive pedal, let's say. So then I went ahead and I ran the BB Preamp in front of the Sheriff. So let's listen to what that sounds like. Okay, so this finally gave me a bit more oomph, a bit more volume, that little bit of boost that I'm looking for, and the BB Preamp sounds great, so I think it just added to the whole sound. I ran it in front of the Sheriff Preamp to see what it would do pushing the Sheriff like that, and I think it sounded really good. Again, I'm not seeing quite where it's worth taking out something so big and with its own power supply and everything. It just didn't seem to do a lot. So then I thought I'd put the tremolo that I've got, the Harmonious Monk from Jam Pedals, I'd put that through the effects loop with the Sheriff and see what happens there. So I really enjoyed playing with the Harmonious Monk in that setup. I think it added the little bit of X factor that I was looking for. Again, I feel like, you know, if I'd run any overdrive, good overdrive pedal from a clone Centaur type to you know, Tube Scream or whatever, you know, I'd have got a similar effect. I guess the Sheriff is specifically giving a bit more of that grit that you get with Plexi style overdrive, and I enjoy that. I'd say the pedal works best when you run the first channel in a relatively clean mode. You use the master volume quite high and the channel volume a bit lower. Then you get that thing that you get from a clean Marshall that's on the edge of breakup, and I really enjoy that. So I think for that purpose alone, if you don't want to take out a Marshall amp and you just want to take a Fender amp or a 2-Rock or whatever, it can give you that really nice blooming clean. It's when you start playing around with the higher gain aspects of this Sheriff pedal that I personally don't really enjoy it. I think it sounds a little bit thin. I played, you know, I can't show you everything in this video. I spent several days playing with this. In fact, it pretty much stumped me to the point that I didn't make a video when I normally would in my over the last weekend. And I wanted to go off and learn some new stuff on the guitar, but essentially this video has stumped me a little bit because it's a complicated pedal and I wanted to give it what I could. And, you know, I've heard it sounding fantastic with people like Rabia on Victory Zone videos. And, you know, I'm here to show you what an average person, average guitarist, not a professional, can make these things sound like. So, you know, you tell for yourself, tell me what you think. But for me, in the effects loop of the 2-Rock, it didn't blow my mind. I've got to be honest. It's good. You know, I'd happily use it, especially in a studio setting. But to take out that box, you know, I would just take my pedal board. Personally, I'm not excited by this pedal. So, you know, really that's my final conclusion, is I was expecting a lot from this. I'm probably just going to sell it on, you know, I'll make a bit of a loss. I sort of want to try the copper, you know, and see how voxy we can get with that, you know, get that chime and see if that one's a better one. So I might do that at some point in the future. What do you think? Have any of you got the Sheriff pedal, the V4? What have I done wrong for a start? I always put my hands up, you know, as these things can go wrong. Have I not set it right? You know, I tried to get the best out of it that I could, and it's good. I'm just not blown away compared to some of the great pedals I use, like the Ryra clone, the Duelist, you know, my fuzz pedals, you know, all the other sort of great overdrives that I enjoy. This one, it just didn't give me the extra thing that I thought a proper valve preamp would. I would say I haven't used it in every possible way that you could. And another way that people use it is directly into their sort of recording interface. And it can act like a proper preamp as opposed to, you know, preamp pedals like the Echoplex and the BB. I don't think you can use those like those straight into an interface. This you know, has that power and everything like that you can use it. So for a studio guitarist, maybe it'll be a useful thing. But anyway, onwards and upwards. I'm going to put up the next vote very soon in the next week or so we can vote on the next pedal. I'll buy that one and I'll give you another review. But I hope you've enjoyed this. I tried to do it justice, but you know, I'm just an independent guy, amateur guitarist, and so you can see what it's like in the real world. That's what these videos are for. So if you've enjoyed that, please subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. Comment down below, what did you think? Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Cheers.